Everyone pictures winding souks and mint tea when they think of Morocco. But here, you'll find a blue-washed town, a hand-painted sign in Zagora still pointing, Timbuktu, 52 days, and an ancient Caesar that became a Hollywood fortress. You'll follow saffron-scented fields in Taliouine and cross snow-capped ridges of the Atlas before stepping into an ocean of Sahara dunes lit by a sky so full of stars it feels unreal. Zagora's palm-lined Draa Valley is one of the Earth's longest continuous oasis systems, an uninterrupted ribbon of green running over 100 kilometers along the Sahara's edge. Do you know the famous Zagora sign once guided camel caravans with its cryptic note, 52 days to Timbuktu, marking an ancient trans-Saharan route? Beyond the palms lie ochre sour and mud brick villages whose grainy walls still remember the salt and gold caravans that crossed here. Tamigrut, a short ride from Zagora, shelters a trove of manuscripts and a tiny mosque library whose bindings whisper centuries of desert scholarship. Local potters turned the town's clay into emerald green ceramics, a craft passed down through families for generations. At dusk, the Draa's irrigation channels gleam, reflecting the stars that once guided Berber and Tuareg traders to this lifeline. Zagora becomes a launchpad for journeys deeper into silence, where the dunes of Erg Chigaga rise like sculpted oceans of sand. Nomad camps around Mohammed connect to Zagora through winding treks, and their stories tie salt roads to modern adventure itineraries. Walk the palm alleys, and you will find ancient wells and carved inscriptions pointing to livelihoods tuned to scarce water. Date groves here produce varieties prized across Morocco, their harvests storing both sustenance and seasonal ritual. This borderland is where human persistence met desert scale, where irrigation, knowledge, and trade stitched life into inhospitable land. To leave Zagora is to carry its light, palm shadows, manuscript dust, and the echo of a sign that once pointed toward Timbuktu. In Zagora, you sense time layered like sediment, each era compacted into an object, a tale, a palm stay a night in a camp, and the dawn will teach you why this margin of Morocco feels both fragile and fiercely alive. High above the Atlantic, Morocco's Atlantic coastline hides an underground freshwater aquifer that feeds palm oases hundreds of kilometers inland, a phenomenon rare in arid regions. Do you know Morocco's Casablanca, often pictured as a modern metropolis, sits on the meeting point of ancient tide winds and sculpted coastal reefs that once guided Phoenician sailors? But the city's real secret is not its skyline. It's the human geography stitched into its neighborhoods since the French protectorate. From the whitewashed villas of Habous to the labyrinthine souks near the port, Casablanca is a mosaic of stories that still vibrate beneath its asphalt. Start with the Hassan II Mosque, its minaret piercing the sky and its foundation built over the sea, anchored on concrete pilings drilled into living rock. More than a landmark, the mosque is a living ledger of craftsmanship, where plasterworkers, wood carvers, and zeli artisans preserve techniques passed down for centuries. Those pockets of ordinary life are the true secret of Casablanca, a city that looks like a global port but keeps intimate local rituals alive. By tracing these connected spaces from mosque to market, port to gallery, you'll see how Casablanca threads Morocco's ancient coastlines into its contemporary story. Stay with us, and we'll follow that thread, unspooling hidden corners, unlikely characters, and the surprising ways the sea keeps pulling Casablanca toward its past and future. The High Atlas of Morocco holds North Africa's highest peak, Mount Toubkal, rising to 4,167 meters and sheltering ancient glacier remnants. Do you know that the Toubkal Massif conceals alpine meadows where rare endemic plants and herds of Barbary macaques survive in microclimates unseen elsewhere? From the red rock spires of Tadga Gorge to the honeycombed Kasbahs, along the Dades Valley, the mountains stitch together landscapes that shift in a single day's journey. Local mule tracks and old caravan routes still bind remote Berber villages like Imlil and Ait Bougamez to distant oases, carrying stories as much as salt. In Imlil, you can taste spring water that travels down from snowfields on Toubkal and listen to mountain elders speak of routes used for centuries. A few hours away, the Valley of Roses blooms in May, its petals perfuming the air and feeding a fragrant economy of distillers and weavers. Higher still, cedar forests cloak slopes where the shy Barbary macaque swings between trunks older than many European towns. Those same forests feed streams that carve the iconic gorges, and those gorges open onto winding roads that lead traders toward the desert. TC in Tichka, past the view unspools into saffron fields and Kasbah ruins that once guarded trans-Saharan routes. The pass itself is a spine, linking Marrakech's red walls with the palm-lined strips of the Dra River and the dunes beyond. In winter, Okai Maiden becomes a surprising alpine playground, its slopes attracting skiers who trade Mediterranean light for crisp mountain air. Summer hikers, meanwhile, follow shepherd trails to hidden lakes where migratory birds rest in the shadow of limestone escarpments. Every valley seems to hand off a new scene. One moment a rose-scented village, the next a carpet of juniper and a cliffside granary. Prepare to find places that look like ends of the earth, but in truth are crossroads of centuries. We begin where snow meets desert ski and let the mountains reveal why Morocco's heart beats in the high Atlas. Stay with these ridgelines. Each one is a doorway to the next extraordinary secret. Martil Beach curves like a polished crescent along Morocco's Mediterranean coast, its fine sand backed by palm-lined promenades. The tidal rhythm here is gentle, and the light at dusk paints the sea in unusual turquoise and brass hues that local painters prize. Do you know, Martil's promenade was shaped by early 20th century Spanish urban planning, leaving tiled facades and cafes that still hum with old-world chatter. This blend of Moroccan and Spanish touches makes Martil feel like a living crossroads between cultures and eras. Fishermen haul in small silvery sardines at dawn, and the fish markets on the esplanade change pace as the day warms. By afternoon, families and surfers claim the shallow bays, while vendors lay out bright textiles and fresh citrus under the palms. At the northern tip, a sheltered inlet funnels migratory birds along the coast, turning winter mornings into quiet ornithological spectacles. And when the wind picks up, kite surfers streak above the waters, linking Martil to the broader northern coast known for its wind sports. Beyond the beach, narrow lanes lead uphill into Taliouine's old Medina, its whitewashed houses and artisan workshops a short, fragrant walk away. proximity means a stroll from Martil can easily fold into a day of visiting Tétouan's UNESCO-listed alleys, carrying souvenirs and seaside salt with you. Evenings at Martil soften into a ritual. Fishermen mend nets, street vendors grill sardines, and the sky slices through colors as the rift darkens. Locals meet on the promenade's benches, trading news about harvests, markets, and the next festival that will fill the beach with music. And in quiet winter months, the shoreline becomes a reflective walk that locals favor for its calming sea and brisk mountain air. Martil's cuisine echoes its seas. Citrus-marinated fish, fresh shellfish, and a simple tagine shared among friends on low wooden tables. These flavors, like the place itself, act as a bridge, guiding visitors from coastal leisure toward the labyrinthine stories waiting in the Medina of Tétouan and the peaks of the Rif. Just 30 kilometers from Marrakech, Morocco's high atlas creates a rare meeting of snow-capped peaks and palm-filled oases that feed underground springs into the city below. Do you know the Toubkal Massif, near Marrakech, generates microclimates so varied that almond blossoms and citrus groves can bloom within a single valley? Walk into the Medina, and the first thing you notice is how time folds around narrow alleys where craftsmen shape brass and leather the same way their ancestors did. From the pulse of Jama el-Fna, storytellers, snake charmers, and grills smoking saffron-streaked meat, the city unwinds like a living tapestry. Koutoubiyah's minaret watches over the square, its silhouette a constant that links centuries of sunrise prayers to the modern rhythm of Marrakech. Slip beyond the bustling souks, and you find riads hidden behind unmarked doors, where courtyards hold orange trees and hidden fountains. Each riad whispers stories of spices traded from the Sahara and dyes brought by caravan routes, and those trades still shape the patterns you see on textiles today. From the ornate tiles of the Bahia Palace to the shadowed alleys that funnel you toward artisans' workshops, the city connects craft to palace splendor. A short walk brings you to the Majorelle Garden. Its intense blue, a deliberate contrast to the ochres of the Medina, and a secret preserved for decades. Yves Saint Laurent's restoration turned this botanical jewel into a refuge of cacti and water. But the real surprise is how the garden's light changes the color of everything it touches. Beyond that calm, the Menara Terrace is open onto olive groves with the high Atlas as a backdrop, a landscape that invites day trips into mountain villages. In the Atlas foothills, Berber villages hold ancient irrigation systems and tales that explain why Marrakech became both a trade hub and a cultural crossroads. Return at dusk to the city and seek out a rooftop terrace, the real secret of Marrakech, where the call to prayer, cooling air, and a bowl of steaming harira create a moment you won't forget at that. Keep watching to uncover hidden riads, secret passages beneath the Medina, and a surprising natural cavern outside the city that shaped Marrakech's water and its history. At Guelmim, the desert begins in earnest, where vast sand seas rise within a day's ride of the Atlantic. Do you know Guelmim's legendary camel market still pulses with traders and caravans, a living link to centuries of Saharan trade? This border town has always been a crossroads, where nomadic rhythms meet settled life and coastal winds mingle with Saharan heat. Here the souks sell more than spices and textiles. They are stages where gestures, barter, and stories keep an ancient economy alive. Walk past piles of woven blankets and the low murmur of negotiation, and you can almost hear the shuffle of camel hooves over dunes. Local women still handcraft goods from camel wool and date palm fibers, preserving techniques passed down through generations. Beyond the market, the landscape loosens into scrub and then into the first sing-song ripples of sand that lead to the true Sahara. Guides from Guelmim can take you on short journeys where the light turns gold and silence grows louder than any city noise. At dawn, the horizon is a ribbon of cool blue fading into endless beige, and migratory birds sketch improbable routes above it. At dusk, nomads light small fires, and the stars unfurl with an intimacy rarely felt near metropolitan centers. The town's proximity to both the desert and the coast makes its cuisine unexpectedly diverse, from grilled fish to hearty tagine species for travelers. Shared meals become a way to exchange maps, stories, and the latest news from routes stretching into Mauritania and beyond. Guelmim's simple guest houses open onto verandas where older men repair leather harnesses and younger ones plan desert crossings. Languages overlap: Arabic, Tamazight dialects, and hints of Wolof, forming a living atlas of southern Morocco's ties. If you follow the road south from Guelmim, The towns thin and the dunes grow, but the imprint of human trade remains visible. Carved stones, abandoned wells, and solitary palm groves mark the old caravan trails that once stitched this region together. Visiting Guelmim is less about ticking landmarks and more about feeling a threshold where civilization yields to landscape. It is a place that teaches patience, respect for weather, and an appreciation for the quiet tenacity of desert life. From here, the desert is not an anonymous void, but a living neighbor with moods, histories, and roots for those who listen. Guelmim stands as a reminder that journeys across sand can still change how we think about distance, home, and trade. Erg Chebi in Morocco's Sahara rises in towering walls of golden sand, with some dunes exceeding 150 meters and shifting like living architecture. Do you know the Erg Chebi dunes near Merzouga can sing? A low, resonant sound born when dry sand slides and amplifies through hidden layers? At dawn, the ridgelines carve sharp silhouettes, and travelers watch light push a moving shadow that redraws the desert every hour. Local nomads, often called the Tuareg or Saharan Berbers, read those shadows as maps, guiding caravans across landscapes that erase tracks overnight. Beneath the wind-sculpted surface lie ancient riverbeds and fossilized terraces that whisper of a wetter Sahara thousands of years ago. In Merzouga, small kasbahs and palm oases stand like green lanterns against the sea of sand, offering water, stories, and the scent of orange blossom. Camels fold into the horizon, their silhouettes recalling trade routes, where salt, gold, and smestas once threaded between Africa and Europe. At night, the sky over the Sahara becomes one of the planet's deepest theaters of stars, where constellations slide low and the Milky Way pours like spilled milk. Guide tales speak of hidden wells and rock shelters that held prehistoric hunters, connecting human history to this shifting place. From the high dunes, your eye follows a sand river down toward the Drayal Valley, where palm groves and kasbahs stitch the desert to the Atlas Mountains. Oases like Tansaicht and towns such as Risani hold markets that grew from the backs of camel caravans, their alleys still humming with barter and saffron stints. Not far beyond, the vast Erg Chegaga stretches wilder and less trodden, a remoter sea of dunes that tests the grit of any traveler. And if you follow the desert trail, the dunes will eventually hand you over to the next chapter. Palm-lined valleys, ancient fortresses, and the foothills that frame distant snow. In the silence of Erg Chebi, you begin to understand why people have been drawn to and transformed by this landscape for millennia. The Sahara's secrets are patient. They reveal themselves slowly, one footprint and one story at a time. An isolated ribbon of palm groves and eroded clay ramparts near the edge of the High Atlas makes Morocco's Sunala Valley around Ait Ben Haddou one of the rarest desert agriculture transition zones on Earth. Do you know that Ait Ben Haddou's Geysar is not just a fort, but a living archive of mud brick engineering, where ancient earthen plaster can be renewed every few years to preserve entire neighborhoods? Perched on a hill above a dry riverbed, the fortified village keeps a memory of trans-Saharan caravan routes and the names of families who guarded the salt and gold that once flowed through here. The tall, narrow kasbahs and crenellated towers were designed to catch breezes and shade narrow alleys, a vernacular climate science crafted over centuries. UNESCO recognized Ait Ben Haddou not for a single palace, but for an entire system of earthen architecture adapted to extreme seasonal shifts between torrential winter rains and bone-dry summers. Walk its lanes, and you can still read repairs made with palm fiber and river silt that bind mud into structures surprisingly resilient to time. Film crews arrived and left, but many productions like Lawrence of Arabia and Game of Thrones used the Khazar because its silhouette seemed to exist outside of time. Those repeated gestures are the real film that keeps Ait Ben Haddou alive, connecting past caravan life to modern livelihoods and linking it forever to the surrounding mountains and desert. In this single Khazar, you can trace trade routes, engineering know-how, colonial encounters, cinematic myth-making, and contemporary resilience woven into one landscape. To leave Ait Ben Haddou is to follow the old road toward tinier villages and highland cedar forests, each place a chapter in the larger story of Morocco's environmental and cultural mosaic. Taliouine's terraced saffron fields on the sun-baked slopes of the Anti-Atlas produce some of the world's rarest and most aromatic crimson threads, harvested only a few weeks each autumn. Do you know Taliouine's signature spice comes from a single purple crocus whose delicate stigmas are hand-picked at dawn and can fetch prices that rival precious metals per gram? Walk through the village markets and you hear stories passed down for generations about the precise timing and rituals that coax the flower's scent from soil. Each family keeps secret techniques for draining the stigmas, and those methods are what link Taliouine to the spice bazaars of Taroudant and the royal kitchens of Marrakech. From the starched blue of denim workers in the fields to elderly women sorting threads by tweetlight, the saffron harvest is both a communal festival and a fragile livelihood. You begin to understand why harvesters measure success in bloom counts rather than acres, and why one misread season can mean ruin. The flowers open only for a few hours each morning, forcing entire villages to move with the sun, an ancient choreography rarely seen elsewhere. Those narrow windows of time connect Taliouine's rhythms to the wider seasons that shape life across the Anti-Atlas and beyond. Saffron's color and scent are tests of provenance. Masters can tell a field or even a family by its hue, and buyers travel from Ouarzazate and Taroudant to verify authenticity. Follow those paths, and you can trace how a tiny stigma carried not just flavor, but stories from the Anti-Atlas into palaces and markets across the Mediterranean. In the next segment, we'll trace one of those routes to a kasbah, where saffron jars sit alongside the maps of past journeys, revealing unexpected ties between land, labor, and luxury. What seems like a simple thread of red is actually a compass for understanding Morocco's layered landscapes and the people who tend them. Fas hides one of the world's most intact medieval medinas, where labyrinthine lanes reveal hidden courtyards and centuries-old artisans still shape wood, brass, and leather. Do you know Al-Qarawiyyin, founded in 859, is considered the oldest continuously operating degree-granting university, and its manuscripts outdate many modern institutions. Pass under the blue sweep of Bab Bou Jaloud, and the Medina unfurls into a tapestry of Zeli tiles, carved stucco, and private fountains tucked behind ornate doors. At the Al-Tarin Madrasa, Delicate stone tracery and cedar ceilings testify to a devotion to detail that guided artisans for generations. Below, the Chouara tannery churns with stone vats of dye, where hides are softened, treated, and colored, using traditional, largely natural methods passed down in families. Climb to a rooftop terrace, and the vantage point turns those dye pits into a living mosaic, while the calls of craftsmen form an urban chorus. The Mellah, Fez's historic Jewish quarter, folds into this web, with its own synagogues, markets, and cemeteries, adding another intimate layer of memory to the city. Nearby workshops send hammered brass lamps and finely tooled metalwork into markets worldwide, binding local craft to global design histories. Ancient water channels and public fountains knit neighborhoods together, feeding hammams and gardens and reminding you that resource stewardship shaped urban life here long before modern plumbing. From Nejerine's carved carpentry to the tiny dye shops, every alley acts as an apprenticeship in motion, where skills travel hand to hand and generation to generation. As dusk deepens, minaret silhouettes and tiled facades soften, and the Medina's rhythm shifts to night markets, where spices, pottery, and stories find new voice. Walking these lanes connects you to centuries of continuity and leaves you curious about the private lives and stubborn traditions that keep Fez alive today. Ras El Ma is one of the few perennial mountain springs in the Rif, whose steady crystal flows have literally sustained Chefchaouin's blue-painted Medina and its gardens for centuries. Do you know Ras El Ma feeds a maze of stone channels, centuries-old water wheels, and trout-filled basins, tucked just beyond the town's last blue doorway? Morning light fractures on the cascade and paints the wet stones in sharp, shifting blues that seem to echo the painted alleys above. Local women descend with woven baskets to beat and rinse carpets, the percussion of wool and water, forming a daily ritual that has shaped both craft and community here. Children hurl themselves from moss-smoothed ledges into shallow pools, their laughter braided with the long, steady hiss of falling water. Small riverside cafes nestle against the banks where old men nurse mint tea and trade stories about springs, seasons, and the high rift trails. Beneath a low stone arch, a tiled shrine marks a place where villagers once asked the mountain for rain, a tiny human gesture amid the geology. The mineral-rich water nourishes watercress and supports brown trout, ingredients that move directly from these pools into the kitchens of nearby homes and modest restaurants. Narrow stone steps, polished by generations of feet, lead you away from the last houses and along the stream, each bend revealing another turquoise pocket or ferned grotto. Photographers come for the chromatic contrasts, but the deeper wonder is how this modest ribbon of water regulates temperature, crops, and color for an entire town through dry summers and late winters. In spring, the upper Rif, slopes above Ras El Ma explode into carpets of wildflowers and thyme, and shepherds bring their flocks down to the cool source for newborn lambs and fresh forage. Hikers follow the streambed higher to limestone ledges, small caves, and cutter-scented tracks that stitch the spring to the broader mountain network, making Ras El Ma both a destination and a waypoint. Old irrigation channels, engineered by Moorish hands, still divert overflow to terraced gardens below, a living example of water management that visitors often overlook. Walk far enough, and the Medina's bustle becomes a memory, replaced by the steady, insistent language of dripping stone, bird calls, and the occasional bleat of goats. At dusk, the last light catches on the pools, and the blue alleys fold into a softer shade, as if Ras El Ma were returning a bit of sky to the town each evening. From here, a narrow mule track climbs toward Akchour and the cedar groves, linking this hidden water source to some of Morocco's most dramatic canyons and reminding you that every step out of the blue alleys moves you deeper into the Rif's living geography. Hidden in Morocco's high Atlas, an isolated population of thousand-year-old Atlas cedars clings to steep granite slopes, surviving glacial echoes found almost nowhere else on Earth. Do you know that Morocco's Erg Chebi dunes can sing, emitting deep musical booms when dry sand avalanches reshape their towering ridges? From these silent cedars, the landscape falls into narrow ochre chasms. The Tadga Gorge, where river-carved walls rise like living cathedrals and hide microclimates with palms and wildflowers. Follow the river downstream, and the gorge opens into the Dades Valley, a patchwork of rose-scented fields and kasbahs that tells the story of ancient water management and caravan trade. The Dades Road threads past red earth villages into the palm-lined Dra Valley, its date palms forming green veins across an otherwise arid spine of southern Morocco. And just beyond, the plains melt into the orange seas of Erg Chebi near Merzouga, where nomadic camps watch dunes that shift meters overnight and mirror the stars in still, windless nights. From coastal blue of Essaouira to the salty marshes of Souss, each environment seems separate until you trace the invisible threads of wind, water, and human patchwork connecting them. And And then there are secret coastal spots where migrating whales are sighted in spring, their passage echoed in the songs of fishing villages that have watched the sea for generations. Every region folds neatly into the next. Mountains feeding valleys, valleys feeding deserts, and the human stories braided through them make Morocco not just a landscape, but a living atlas of hidden wonders. The High Atlas of Morocco holds North Africa's highest peak, Mount Toubkal, rising to 4,167 meters and sheltering ancient glacier remnants. Do you know that the Toubkal Massif conceals alpine meadows where rare endemic plants and herds of Barbary macaques survive in microclimates unseen elsewhere? From the red rock spires of Tadga Gorge to the honeycombed Kasbahs, along the Dades Valley, the mountains stitch together landscapes that shift in a single day's journey. Local mule tracks and old caravan routes still bind remote Berber villages like Imlil and Ait Bougamez to distant oases, carrying stories as much as salt. In Imlil, you can taste spring water that travels down from snowfields on Toubkal and listen to mountain elders speak of routes used for centuries. A few hours away, the Valley of Roses blooms in May, its petals perfuming the air and feeding a fragrant economy of distillers and weavers. Higher still, cedar forests cloak slopes where the shy Barbary macaque swings between trunks older than many European towns. Those same forests feed streams that carve the iconic gorges, and those gorges open onto winding roads that lead traders toward the desert. At Tissi in Atichka, past the view unspools into saffron fields and Kasbah ruins that once guarded trans-Saharan routes. The pass itself is a spine, linking Marrakech's red walls with the palm-lined strips of the Dra River and the dunes beyond. In winter, Okai Maiden becomes a surprising alpine playground, its slopes attracting skiers who trade Mediterranean light for crisp mountain air. Summer hikers, meanwhile, follow shepherd trails to hidden lakes where migratory birds rest in the shadow of limestone escarpments. Every valley seems to hand off a new scene. One moment a rose-scented village, the next a carpet of juniper and a cliffside granary. Prepare to find places that look like ends of the earth, but in truth are crossroads of centuries. We begin where snow meets desert ski and let the mountains reveal why Morocco's heart beats in the high Atlas. Stay with these ridgelines. Each one is a doorway to the next extraordinary secret. As our journey through Morocco draws to a close, the country's landscapes, from the wind-sculpted dunes of Merzouga to the cedar forests of the Middle Atlas, reveal a rare convergence of desert, mountain, and sea. Every Kasbah and Medina we entered, from the fortified walls of Ait Ben Haddou to the labyrinthine souks of Fes, acted as a living thread connecting centuries of culture and craft. We moved with the river, from the olive terraces of the Dra Valley to the thunderous Ouzoud Falls, watching how water and time carved stories into the land. Coastal towns like Essaouira and the blue lanes of Chefchaouen I offered salt-sweet breezes and pigments that mirrored Morocco's complex palette. In the high Atlas, locals guided us over passes where Berber villages cling to slopes and legends are stitched into daily life. At night under Sahara stars near Erg Chebi, tent fires and Tarija rhythms reminded us that boundaries between past and present here are porous. Architectural wonders, the intricate Zeli tiles, cedar-carved minbars, and ochre walls of Marrakech reflected a civilization that values beauty and resilience. Each market barter, each mint tea served, and every handshake we received linked people to place in a way that felt both intimate and expansive. If Morocco taught us one enduring lesson, it's that diversity is not disorder, but an invitation to look closer, to see how dunes feed oases, how mountain passes funnel trade, and how the Atlantic breeze tempers desert heat. Carry with you the memory of saffron sunsets over Kasbahs, the echo of call to prayer mixing with gull cries, and the taste of citrus and spices that linger on the tongue. As you leave this story, remember, these landscapes are not static scenes, but living chapters that continue to evolve with every traveler who listens. Return to Morocco's maps, and you will find that every route we followed can unfold anew, revealing hidden corners we only brushed in this film. Let this be an invitation to travel deliberately, to connect with people and place, and to let Morocco's contrasts reshape how you see the world. Until the next journey, keep the images of its light, its songs, and its textures costly. They are the real souvenirs that outlast any photograph.